This is a savage crime of murder and terrorism in the heart of Tel Aviv. It's done by criminal terrorists who don't value human life. We're going to take the necessary steps to attack the attackers and to defend those who need to be defended.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowing to act firmly in response to yesterday's deadly Tel Aviv attack. And today, Israel responded, deploying more troops to the West Bank and revoking travel permits for Palestinians during Ramadan. But will that be enough? And we remind you throughout our time this evening, you can call in here to the program at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Let's talk this over now with someone who is a good friend of the program, joining us via Skype from Jerusalem, the Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, Rabbi Abraham Cooper. He is the founder of Digital Terrorism and Hate Project at the center. And as always, Rabbi, we appreciate your time here on Newsmax Prime. So there you are in Israel. Describe the mood there yesterday and what has transpired today.
Well, the immediate mood, of course, was total shock. An attack in downtown Tel Aviv, the place least likely to be targeted. A lot of times people from places like Sderot to Jerusalem will go there for some R&R. And in this case, 4 Israelis paid with their lives for the fact of being Jewish and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a horrific crime. It could have been a lot worse. So Israelis first react in shock. Of course, the police were there right away, people trying to help each other out. And then naturally, anger, that's a human reaction, but also wanting to respond in a smart way to try to head off additional attacks if possible. And this is all we're 24 hours later, and a few hours from now, I'll go with some of my grandsons to the Western Wall in the Old City. When we finish our prayers, Ramadan is in full swing also in the Old City. So Muslims and Jews will commingle in this kind of environment. And the resolve of Israelis is that life has to go on. You don't allow the terrorists to dictate your lives. But, I think another lesson often lost on our president and the administration and the media is that for Israelis, the basic issue, the challenge of staying safe, is not a left-right issue. It's not only Bibi Netanyahu who says that right now, unfortunately, there's no hope for a two-state solution.
And so let's drill down a little bit on that. Pardon the interruption, but you mentioned something about going to the wall and in the old section of Jerusalem, commingling with Muslims who are already there. Now, Rabbi, Hamas says the 2 gunmen were members of their organization, and Hamas said they are promising more, quote, surprises for Israel, even though they haven't taken official responsibility for the attack. They celebrated it. What does that tell you? Do you expect something more from Hamas in the next few days right there in Old Jerusalem?
Well, we're dealing with thugs and terrorists for whom terrorism is continued to pay. Israel is sealing off the West Bank completely for the Shavuot holiday, which is Saturday night and Sunday here in the Holy Land. But I think basically, if there are any surprises coming up, they better look out their own windows. Israel will take the necessary steps to secure the safety of its citizens and also to try to do it in a way in which they don't generate more recruits for the evildoers. I think the most important thing for all of the people who live in the Old City, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, people I would call the normals, is that if you don't continue to act in terms of what your life is all about, teaching your kids and grandchildren, and living the lifestyle, we're handing a victory to the terrorists and to those behind them, including Iran. So,
Rabbi, again,
yeah.
pardon the interruption, but there's a limited amount of time, and I want to get to several subjects since you're so generous with that time, Rabbi. You mentioned that this should not be a left-right issue, and yet here in the United States, it is an election year. Indeed, earlier this year at the AIPAC Policy Conference, Donald Trump vowed to make Israel a top priority. Let's look and listen to what he had to say.
When I become president, the days of treating Israel like a second-class citizen will end on day one.
Rabbi, there has been some concern about our current commander-in-chief and exactly the relationship now between the United States and Israel. Do you believe Donald Trump would, in fact, strengthen relations, and might he make a better friend for Israel than Hillary Clinton?
Nobody really knows what's going to happen, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of whoever wins. Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of foreign policy experience, but I think he does know the difference between friend and foe in the Middle East. And so, obviously, we hope that he would live up to the statement he just made. I think the real challenge here is for Hillary Clinton, because they're talking about some sort of November surprise at the United Nations led by France, in which the U.S. may not veto the anti-Israel resolution. So I think the pressure is going to be on Secretary Clinton between now and Election Day to actually be explicit and specific that if the U.S. in fact doesn't veto a resolution that might call for sanctions against the Jewish state, what will she do on day one? And if she doesn't answer that in a clear fashion, it's going to raise a lot of questions, not only among Jews and among supporters of Israel, but I think among millions of Americans who are going to say, if you're the commander-in-chief and not only the Secretary of State, will you show real leadership and show the kind of friendship with the Jewish state, which is the United States' only true friend in the Middle East, in an area that has failed states, and of course we have Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a challenge for both candidates. I think a lot of people in the Jewish community are hoping to get more meat on the bone from candidate Trump to, sort of tell us in more specifics how he sees the U.S. game plan in the region. But it's nice to hear a senior politician talk about, in a kind of an almost visceral way about friendship for the state of Israel. Hillary Clinton has begun to speak the same way, especially to distance herself from the other candidate. But now it's going to come down to the two of them. And I think that President Obama, having endorsed her now and sending up signals that after Election Day, he may take a historic step in the opposite direction, that puts a lot of pressure on Hillary Clinton.
Let's take a look geopolitically after talking about what is coming here in terms of politics in the United States. From your vantage point in Israel tonight, Rabbi, we should note that Iran has been accused of supporting terrorism, and according to some new reports, American tax dollars are actually funding the Iranian military expansion. It started with that $1.7 billion transfer that took place very suspiciously timed about the same time our American sailors who had been abducted by the Iranian Navy were released. Now, last night on this program, I spoke to Congressman Mike Pompeo of Kansas about that specific transaction. Let's listen to the words of the congressman.
I'm concerned that there are additional payments pending, that there are other deals in the work. You saw the other day, we took off the hands of the Iranians some heavy water from their uranium enrichment process. We paid U.S. taxpayer money to do that. These deals with the Iranians are running rampant, and I think we all know they are not our partner in peace, in spite of anything that the president and the Ayatollah might tell us.
So we have that situation, and we have the proximity of Iran to Israel and the what seems to be unremitting hostility of the Iranian regime. The irony of American taxpayer money ending up in the hands of the Iranians to expand their military. I would imagine that is of huge concern, not only to you personally, but to your friends there in Israel. We've got about a minute remaining, Rabbi.
I think everyone is concerned about the Iranian deal. It's a very expensive one. We're learning every day about more giveaways. And again, I think the real pressure here will be on candidate Clinton to explain to the American people what she's going to do to make sure that the Iranians simply don't run out the clock, build their nuclear weapon, and have us pay for a lot of the stuff along the way. It is a time of great concern for Israel, but I have to tell you, the bottom line, this is a great country. It's a young country again. The people here love America, and Israel is a strong, vibrant democracy, and the Jews are not going anywhere.
Rabbi Abraham Cooper, tonight from Jerusalem. As always, sir, we appreciate your insights and analysis here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, JD.
And there is more ahead as we continue, including your phone calls, when we come back with more here on Newsmax Prime.